In an attempt to wrap up our deep dive into Epstein, this episode will contain all the information you should know, but I have not told you yet. So follow me down the rabbit hole one more time about Jeffrey Epstein. Hello, friends, and welcome back to the rabbit hole. I'm your host, Danny, and today we are finally finishing Jeffrey Epstein. This, I probably will name it like the last Epstein episode or whatever. I don't know. But this is all the information that I found in my research or like after I had already posted the episode about whatever topic that I couldn't go back and repost. So I put it into this miscellaneous episode. Before we get started, of course, I'd love to thank our sponsors. So thank you, Wise Wolf Gold, for sponsoring my podcast. Guys, if you want gold and silver delivered straight to your front door for as little as $50 a month, it's so easy. You go to rabbithole.gold and you subscribe. It comes every single month. Super easy. You don't even have to think about it. It's a subscription. But let's jump in. We're going to start back again with Ghislaine Maxwell because recently Ghislaine was visited by Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche at the federal prison she was in Tallahassee. She's not there anymore. We will get into that in just a second. In this interview, she denied having trafficked anyone and having witnessed any non-consensual sexual activity or sex involving minors. This interview came just weeks after the Trump administration stated that there was no Epstein list, which was surprising to everyone because they had been saying since he got into office that this list would be released. And then now all of a sudden they're like, there's no list. And Glenn's like, perfect. If there's no list, then I'm not in trouble anymore. So she claimed that she never witnessed Trump doing anything inappropriate with anybody. She also claimed that Bill Clinton had not traveled to Epstein's island, nor was Epstein and Bill Clinton even friends at all. She did say that she was friends with the Clintons, but he was not. She claimed that she never saw Prince Andrew do anything inappropriate either. And she echoed what Trump's administration said about the list, that there wasn't a list. That Epstein didn't have a stockpile of blackmail material, and that the list was just made up by the law firm that filed the civil suits on behalf of the victims. But that same law firm was prosecuted for crimes such as money laundering, fraud, conspiracy, and a Ponzi scheme, so they can't be trusted anyway. Ghislaine said that she worked with Epstein beginning in the early 1990s and that their sexual relationship ended in 1999. That Epstein had a heart condition that prevented him from having normal sexual intercourse, but that he did have sex with young kids. So, like, he couldn't have normal sex, but having sex with kids was fine for his heart condition. Yeah, that just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. Ghislaine has also been pictured with a number of victims and accused. So she has all these pictures all over the internet of her with just different people. So I went through to try to find as many pictures as I could to connect her to different people that she's like, no, everything was fine. So notably, the picture with Prince Andrew and 17-year-old Virginia Giuffre, she's in the background. Although she said she believes that that picture is fake. So I don't know about that. She has been pictured sitting in bathing suits with Lauren Powell. So Lauren Powell Jobs is Steve Jobs' widow and the founder of Emerson Collective, which is an organization focused on education, immigration reform, the environment, media and journalism, and health. She is also the lead investor and chair of The Atlantic, which is a magazine, and she's also the co-founder and chair of XQ Institute, a nonprofit focused on high school reform. Oh, also, she's on the board of the Ford Foundation, Council on Foreign Relations, and Chicago CRED. So she knows some people. Ghislaine is pictured potentially in the background of one of the last pictures taken of JonBenet Ramsey. If you don't know, JonBenet Ramsey was a 6-year-old pageant contestant whose murder shocked the nation. She was found murdered in her family's home in Boulder, Colorado on December 26, 1996. The circumstances around her death were strange to say the least, but I have been asked to do an episode on her, and I will because it's super, super weird. Anyway, so there's this picture taken, it's one of the last pictures of JonBenet. In the background, there's this character. We don't know if it's for sure Ghislaine. It looks an awful lot like Ghislaine because of the nose, but it's like this almost like a back profile of Ghislaine potentially. It's hard to know if it's actually her. Definitely is suspicious. I will share a picture so that way if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble, you can see it. If you're just listening, I highly suggest you look up the picture because it's eerie. While awaiting trial in 2021, a photo of Ghislaine with a black eye was released by her lawyer. So she claimed that she didn't know what caused the bruise. She said that she just woke up with a black eye. The lawyers were trying to use this as a way to get her released from jail, to like have her at home on house arrest or something like that, because they're like, look, like people are literally beating her up in jail. But it was her left eye that was bruised. And if we know anything about the Black Eye Club, this is their thing. Like they always bruise the left eye. Although I'm surprised it took her this long to join the Black Eye Club. So anyway, could be the Black Eye Club, could be that she was getting beat up in jail. She said, I don't know what caused the bruise. That's weird. She has been photographed with Trump and Melania when they were just dating in 2000. Her and Epstein actually attended a party at Mar-a-Lago that Trump and Melania were throwing. She and Epstein were actually in a lot of pictures from that night. So one with Gwendolyn Beck, who ran for House of Representatives in Virginia's 8th District in 2014. Epstein actually donated to her campaign. Virginia Giuffre gave testimony to Beck attending an orgy that she and Epstein were at. Musician Michael Bolton was also at that party and pictured with the pair. Ghislaine and model Naomi Campbell were pictured together in 2002. Naomi Campbell has walked in the Victoria's Secret fashion show 7 times, the first being 1995, the last in 2005. She also appeared on the cover of British Vogue in October 2001 with Diddy. So, Naomi Campbell is a person of interest, I would say. Ghislaine spoke at the 4th annual Women, Inspiration, and Enterprise Symposium in 2013. She is the last person that should ever be speaking at an event like this. She's also been pictured speaking at several galas for children. One of them is Disney, and we're going to get back to the Disney connection because that gets weird too. She was in the background of a photo of Trump talking to Paris Hilton. And we all know that Nikki Hilton is married to a Rothschild. So the connection there could go deep. In 2014, she and Elon Musk were pictured together at the Vanity Fair Oscar party. They were posing in the photo like next to each other. They were definitely not touching. It felt like almost like a forced photo. Somebody came along and was like, hey, let's take a picture. Both of them stood there kind of awkwardly. There are a number of other pictures that prominent people that she's been photographed with. I didn't go over all of them. I just wanted to touch on a couple. There has been a prison transfer recently that is super, super suspicious. So at the beginning of August, Ghislaine was moved to a minimum security camp in Texas. She was at a low security prison in Tallahassee, but now is at this minimum security prison camp. So then my question was like, what's the difference between a minimum security and a low security? So low security prisons have like a double fenced perimeter and some kind of electronic detection system, while a minimum security camp has limited or no perimeter fencing at all. So it's like a summer camp. They just get to just be outside and do whatever they want. It's literally prison summer camp. Usually, they don't send sex offenders to these camps. So someone had to waive her sex offender status for her to even be allowed to go there. And they reserve these prison camps for non-violent offenders with less than 10 years left in their sentence and no history of violence or escape attempts. The camps focus on work and program participation. Many of the inmates are engaging in off-site work release programs, which we know that Epstein, when he was imprisoned, he got to go to work 6 days out of the week. Well, now Ghislaine will be able to work, but what does she do if she's technically just a socialite? Anyway, Ghislaine doesn't really fit the bill for this prison camp. She has 12 years left on her 20-year sentence, which, no, the math doesn't add up. I actually got stuck on this for a second. So she got arrested in 2020. She was convicted in 2022. She is set to be released in 2037. But even if she got time served, she would still be getting out in 2040, not 2037. But here we are, 12 years left on her sentence. She's at this summer camp. It makes you wonder if she got a deal for the interview we discussed earlier with Attorney General Todd Blanche, or if she's holding something over Trump's head, or if they're going to try to kill her now and like make her disappear because she's at this minimum security prison and now she could easily hang herself. And then like she'll join Epstein wherever he is. Actually, I did hear that Maxwell's family is petitioning Trump to give Ghislaine a full pardon. So far, that has not happened. I know that like Sam Tripoli has been posting on social media like, oh, Ghislaine's been pardoned. And every single time I Google it because I'm like, there's no way she's been pardoned. So far, she has not been pardoned. but they are petitioning for a pardon. And this only makes sense because if there's no list, then what did she do wrong? I guess she procured girls for Epstein, but not for anyone else? I mean, maybe. I don't know. How long do we give it before she commits suicide and disappears? Because we all know that that's coming. Anyway, moving on along, let's go over other conspiracies that we haven't touched on yet. Let's go down the Disney rabbit hole just for a second. Not the whole Disney rabbit hole, just the Epstein connections to the Disney rabbit hole, because you know that that hole is so, so deep. We don't have time today. But we know that Ghislaine was a talent scout for Disney for years. She was a talent scout for them. She is pictured with Walt Disney many times, and she spoke at the Save the Children event that Disney put on in 1985. At that same event, she is pictured kissing Donald Duck on the cheek and holding children. Not her children, because she doesn't have any children, like just different pictures of her holding different kids. Anyway, fast forward to when Epstein had his island, the Disney Cruise Line offered a snorkeling expedition that had two snorkeling spots. One was Turtle Cove on a St. Thomas Island, and the next stop was Little St. James Island, or better known as Epstein Island. And I don't know how long Disney offered these snorkel locations, but it is odd. It feels a lot like the scene in Pinocchio where all the boys go to Pleasure Island and then just never come back. If you don't remember the scene, I actually re-looked it up for the information for you guys. Little side note, which I think is so weird. I actually used to have nightmares when I was like really little about this scene in Pinocchio. And I don't know why. Like to this day, I remember those nightmares so vividly in my brain. So like rewatching this on YouTube just to like write it down for you guys gave me like PTSD. I'm just kidding. It didn't. But anyway, if you don't remember the scene, so there's this sly fox and he is bragging about his most recent mischievous deed, whatever it was. And that he's bragging to this like fat bad guy. And the sly fox shows him this little bag of money. It was like, look how much money I made doing this, whatever deed I just did. And the big fat bad guy says, you want to make some real money? And pulls out this big fat sack of coins, like gold coins, throws it on the table. And the fox is like, who do you want me to kill? The bad guy says, oh, no, no, no. It's not killing. He says, quote, I'm collecting stupid little boys, the disobedient ones, and I take them to Pleasure Island. And then the fox is taken aback. He's like, Pleasure Island? Like, but the law. Like, he's freaking out. This dude, this fox, willing to kill anybody. You give me that fat stack of money, I'll kill somebody. But I'm not going to collect boys and take them to Pleasure Island for you. Then the bad guy says, there's no risk. They never come back as boys. But the fox was nervous about Pleasure Island. And this movie is from the 1940s. Thanks, Disney, for telling us exactly what's happening. That just like really gave me like chills. I don't like it at all. It definitely feels like that's what's happening here with Epstein Island. Something else that's super strange is that there's a building on Epstein Island, probably the most popular building on Epstein Island that's pictured the most is this building with like blue and white stripes. The Disney Cruise Line's logo is blue and white stripes with a red Mickey Mouse over top. The Walt Disney Pictures logo used to be blue and white stripes. That's like a princess castle. But you know what's odd? On the set of Ellen DeGeneres, the background pillar is blue and white stripes. And then I was like, okay, I wonder what else has the same like logo feel, blue and white stripes. And it's pretty wild. So just to name a couple, American Express, AT&T, Procter & Gamble, Nestle, Warner Bros., General Electric, Intel, Oral-B, Samsung, Skype, Pfizer, Facebook, Visa, IBM, PayPal, Vimeo, Intel, HP, Nokia, United. The list goes on and on and on. These blue and white stripes. But let's take it just one step further. What else has blue and white stripes? Maybe the Israeli flag? Yep, I took it there. I'm not going to go any further because I'm going to get kicked off of everything if I do, but you can make all the connections yourself. But it's probably just a coincidence, right? Like, just odd. Maybe everyone just likes blue and white. That just seems to be a very popular combination of colors. And it's like the same shade of blue and white, which I think is weird. Although now Disney has changed their logo. So at the beginning of the movie, it's not like blue and white with like the little arch going over top. Now it's like an actual like real live castle with like a little train going through and, you know, the arch over top. Maybe they changed their logo to distance themselves from Jeffrey Epstein. Another coincidence is that Epstein was pictured on his island or an island, I don't know if it was his, I can't verify, with a group of four boys. These boys, they're said to be island boys, and they look pissed. They are not happy to be in this picture with Epstein, although Epstein is standing there with this like really creepy smile on his face. Like he's almost proud of himself. And he's got these boys around him. He's got his arms around two of the boys. Really creepy. The whole thing's super, super creepy. But two of the boys look like younger versions of those tatted up guys that are part of the music duo The Island Boys that literally sing the song like that talks about Island Boys. And they've gone viral on social media, but their music just really isn't that good. So, but everyone, I think people share it because I don't know, the way they sing it, they have this accent. I don't know. Very popular on social media. Speaking of weird coincidences, did you know that Epstein, Barack Obama, Bill Barr, and John Podesta all went to summer camp together? Because I didn't know that. They are all in a picture together from the Interlochen summer camp. It's assumed to be a CIA summer camp for CIA kids because we know that Bill Barr's father, Donald Barr, was in the OSS. Obama's grandfather was in the OSS. So it makes you wonder, like, about, I mean, John Podesta and Tony Podesta. I'm going to give them their whole own episode because, whew. And then Epstein, I haven't figured out the connection to his childhood, but obviously it goes back to his childhood because then eventually Donald Barr hires him at his first job without a degree, and then, everything else spirals out of control. The ages of the boys in the pictures make sense because Obama looks like the youngest in the pictures, and he is 8 years younger than Epstein, and Epstein's like younger than Bill and John. Bill Barr was the oldest of the group. He was in a different bunk room, so he isn't in the same picture with the other three, but he is pictured the same year just with his bunk room. But something else that I didn't know at the time, but now I know, is that Bill Barr was the last person to talk to Jeffrey Epstein before his supposed death. It's coincidental. Anyway, we all know that the trafficking didn't stop. It's just moved on now. Like they don't do it at Epstein Island, but they're doing it next door at St. Thomas. There are some weird things happening at the Ritz-Carlton on St. Thomas. The reviews scream trafficking. So one review stated, quote, "Came here with friends and it was uncomfortable. All I have to say is watch your kids. The Ritz-Carlton St. Thomas is the new Epstein Island, and I don't condone what they are doing to the children there. I will never be returning. It's not safe." Another review says, quote, "This place is not okay. Do your research and do not go there. Protect, protect, protect." There are a lot of them that mention wink. They do like star, wink, star. So at first I was like, oh, maybe they're like trying to say that you're like they're winking. But later on, I'm going to connect it back to an app. So give me a second. I'll read these reviews. This one says, "There are wink festivities happening at this hotel. You didn't hear it from me. Just don't go here unless, of course, you do. That means you're in on it too." This other review says, "Made a great trip to Epstein's Island. 10 out of 10. I will go back soon. Wink." Unsettling. Felt like I was constantly being watched. There's actually a couple like that. So a lot of these reviews are from 2023. That's when we think all the trafficking was happening there. This one was from 2025. And this is only part of the review. I didn't do the whole review because the other part like kind of talks about how the hotel was fine, the service was fine. They gave it a 4 out of 5 stars, and they said, quote, "Beside the people next door from us watching us through the side of the hole in the wall, everything was okay," end quote. Like I said, I didn't finish the rest of the review because they were talking about how everything was okay, but the people next door were watching them through a hole in the wall. Which, like, wouldn't you plug that hole, cover it up, do something, get a new room? But you just, like, stayed in your room and let the people next door watch you? It's just weird. And this last review I wrote down is, "Great view, wink, of the island." And the island was in quotes. They did keep bringing up Wink. So I think that that's a nod to the app called Wink. This app is no longer available, but at the time in 2023, there were several apps under this name. So people were saying that this app, which is like a Tinder for ordering children, was not safe for kids. Kids should not be on this app. And it's believed that that's how they were actually ordering the children to their rooms at the Ritz-Carlton on St. Thomas. But it seems since then that the trafficking has calmed down at that hotel, but I'm sure it's just moved on to a different hotel. Now let's talk about Peter Thiel. And yes, he will get his own episode. I know that he's like a weirdo and Palantir is all in the news, But let's talk about this guy just for a second. So, Peter was the co founder of PayPal with Elon Musk and a couple other people. And he's also one of the founders of Palantir Technologies and Founders Fund. He was also one of the first outside investors in Facebook. So Palantir has been in the news a lot lately. They are a software platform for data mining, so basically a surveillance contractor. And interestingly, in some of Epstein's emails that were leaked, he and Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak wanted to start a surveillance company. Epstein was organizing meetings between Barak and Peter Thiel. And this would make sense because Till already had all the infrastructure for such a company in place. And it wasn't only Till that was involved. They were also building connections with the former director of Israeli signals intelligence and two people in Vladimir Putin's circle. This surveillance company became reportedly Homeland Security, and all of this was taking place in 2015. Around that same time, 2015, 2016, Epstein put $40 million into two funds managed by Valar Ventures. This New York firm was co-founded by Peter Thiel. This investment is now worth about $170 million. Valar Ventures specializes in providing capital to tech companies in the financial space. But in this case, Valar provided capital for reportedly Homeland Security. That's interesting. In other news, it's circulating that Peter Thiel is a lizard. His name is actually an anagram for the reptile, and he never seems to sweat, which is a sign of somebody being a reptile. Like in some interviews, he seems almost like wet, like he is sweating, but people are pointing to that as makeup or as oily lotion, basically fake sweat to make it look like he is sweating because nobody's ever actually seen sweat like bead up on his body, especially during these interviews when he looks like he's sweating, but then like no beads ever form. Now, I don't think this is a smoking gun. Maybe he's just chronically dehydrated. He doesn't sweat, but I don't it's weird. It's really weird, especially because people have pointed to like the Clintons being reptiles and Juliette Bryan, one of Epstein's victims, claimed that she and other victims saw Epstein and other powerful people shapeshift back into their reptile form. And she even drew a picture of it. But speaking of those leaked emails, they actually confirmed a couple of the conspiracy theories we already talked about, that he was using his ranch in New Mexico for breeding women with his DNA, and that he was looking into the identity of the mysterious particle that might trigger the feeling that someone is watching you, which could be why he was so interested in science. Outside of Jeffrey Epstein, there have been some pretty suspicious deaths that center around him. So, of course, we've talked about Jeffrey Epstein's death, Jean-Luc Brunel, and Virginia Giuffre, but let's connect just a couple more. Thomas Michael Bowers was a Deutsche Bank executive who approved large loans for Donald Trump. He was also named in connection to Epstein. Some people actually called him Epstein's personal banker. He was the head of the bank's American Wealth Management Division, and we know this bank is involved with Epstein because they agreed to pay $150 million in a fine for its dealings with Epstein. So Thomas was found on November 19th, 2019, in his Malibu home of an apparent suicide by hanging. The Deutsche Bank connects Epstein to Judge Esther Salas as well. So she is a federal judge in New Jersey whose son was killed and husband was injured in a shooting in their New Jersey home. She presided over a class action lawsuit brought against the bank by investors who claim it made false and misleading statements about its anti-money laundering policies. The lawyer, Roy Den Hollander, showed up at the judge's house, rang the doorbell, and then when the door was opened by her son, he shot and killed the son. And then Roy turned the gun on her husband and shot him 3 times, luckily only injuring him and not killing him. Judge Salas said she believed that the lawyer was actually after her, but he didn't go in the house and look for her. He just shot the son and killed him, shot the husband, injured him. He probably thought he killed the husband as well because he went into critical condition and then just left. He didn't explore the house to find the judge to find out if she was there. And he had been surveilling them. He knew their house, obviously, where the house was. He knew which church that she went to. He actually brought a FedEx package with him as a ruse to get them to open the door, and then didn't even look for her and just killed her son, shot her husband, and left. And then a few hours later, he was found on the side of the road in upstate New York with a single gunshot wound to the head, dead. That's weird. Val Broeksmit is a Deutsche Bank whistleblower, and he was found dead by accidental fall at a Los Angeles high school on April 25th, 2022. So Val's father worked for the bank, and Val found a trove of bank records and emails and like meeting minutes, and he turned all this over to the FBI. These documents pointed to dealings with Trump and Epstein. So he had gone missing about a year before he was found dead. In early 2022, he was arrested for carrying a privately made firearm, probably because he was scared for his life. While he was on the campus of Wilson High School, he fell from a tree and suffered blunt force trauma, broken ribs, and a spinal fracture. Authorities did not suspect foul play, although I've got some serious questions about this. Firstly, like, why were you on a high school campus? In a tree, no less. Like, why were you in a tree on a high school campus? And then you just fell out of this tree and you died. Seems convenient. I'm sure they were probably trying to hang him. And then when he fell out of the tree, he probably got hurt. Then they just, like, beat him up and left him there. It's just, the whole thing's odd. Because Mark Edward Middleton was also found dead by hanging. This one was ruled a suicide, but it just doesn't sound like a suicide. So Mark was an Arkansas businessman and former White House aide to the Clintons who signed Epstein in several times in the 1990s for visits with then President Clinton. On May 7, 2022, he was found dead near Perryville, Arkansas, hanging from a tree with a shotgun wound to the chest. Like I said, his death was ruled a suicide. And then the judge has since sealed all photos, videos, and other visual content of the suicide. There have also been 2 victims of Epstein who both died of accidental overdoses, Lee Sky Patrick and Carolyn Andriano. Carolyn testified in Ghislaine Maxwell's 2021 trial. In 2020, Epstein and Maxwell's chef Andy, died suddenly in his sleep, while Maria Farmer's lawyers were seeking to subpoena him for information on Epstein's case. So Maria Farmer was a victim of Epstein and named Chef Andy as the holy grail of damning information against Epstein. So then they were like trying to find him, and then they found that he died in his sleep. Odd. They were definitely trying to clean house after Epstein's death. So they're like, let's just kill anybody and everybody that might know something or might say something who we don't have blackmail on. Let's kill them. All in all, I do think that the sex offender stuff is a distraction. It is awful. I'm not trying to take anything away from it. Like, it did happen. That was an aspect. But in the end, I think that that's what they want you to focus on. They're like, so focus on this sex offender, financier, focus on that. That way you don't realize all the other things that Epstein was working on, all these other weird things that were happening in the background. Just forget about all that. Next week, we will go over Robert Maxwell because he definitely ties in to Epstein and Ghislaine and how this whole thing works. If I missed anything on Epstein, which I'm sure I did, there's so much out there about Epstein, please send it to me and I might do another episode, like if it's warranted, if I have enough information. If not, then I might just put out like mini things on social media. But until next week, my friends, stay skeptical and I will see you all then. Hey friends, The Rabbit Hole is an independent podcast with everything you hear done by me, Danny Mercy. I appreciate all of your support. Please rate and review wherever you're listening. If you want to follow us on Instagram, it's at rabbit.holepodcast. And thank you, Zakar Valaha, for our awesome intro.